Ugh. Ugh.
Remember, I worked at a meat packing plant for 1 8-hour shift. So that's.
That was enough for you.
You did? I never knew that.
Oh, Ted. Ted. When I was 18 years old, back in the day, Branson was only 6-month seasons. It was Memorial Day to Labor Day. So after Labor Day, when Branson shut down, the Texas Gold Mine, we'd all go back to Texas and spend the next few months. So I worked for a temporary service called Kelly's Temporary Services, and they would place you at jobs, right? And they said, hey, we got a new job for you. Report to Decker Meat Plant. And Decker in the South was like Oscar Mayer. It was big, bologna, weenies, different types of meat. It was like a Hormel or Oscar Mayer. So I report there it was an afternoon shift, and I get there, fill out the paperwork, and they said, okay, you're going to be down in the meat blah, blah, blah department. So they give me this white robe and gloves and a hard hat, and they send me down to this, like the dark, deep depths of the basement of this big plant. And they put me in the weenie section and the bologna section.
Makes sense.
And I'm sitting there, Ted, and all the wieners are like still attached, right? Before, like links right there before they slice them off. And they're on these big metal, they're kind of like wooden pallets, only they're made of metal, and they're hanging from a roller that just kind of rolls through this area. And as they come through, there'd be guys there washing them off with just a water hose. And if a link of those weenies would fall off on the ground in the watery in the car, they'd just pick it up and throw it back on the thing and send it right on down the line. And I'm thinking, it was disgusting. So then, after about 3 hours of the shift, they sent me down to the bologna section. And I was on like a factory line, and they would have all the stuff in the butt, and it would grind it and this and that, and then it would go through the thing to form the stick of bologna, and then it would come down to where I was, and I would stick it in the box and air staple the box up and send it on down the line. Ted, it was like 50 degrees in this place. It was freezing, wet, nasty. It smelled like just ugh. So after that 8-hour shift, I never went back. I didn't call anybody. I didn't tell anybody. I'm like, I didn't eat a hot dog for over a decade. I couldn't even think about eating a hot dog. This is really good sales pitch for the Clay Cooper concession stand right now, right?
I was just going to say, too, and that night you went home and you practiced G, C, and D harder on that guitar than you've ever practiced in your life. Like, I'm going to make something of this career right here.
That's right, buddy. I'm like, never again. You're right, man. I'm like, this is why I want to be a country singer right here.
Did you ever go even pick up your check?
Do what?
Did you even go pick up your check?
Well, the checks they pay. Those companies would pay the temporary service.
Okay.
So yes, they did send me a check, and they called me a couple of days later, like, we got word that you never reported back to Decker Meat Plant. I said, no, ma'am, and I ain't going back there. Forget about it. So
you need to do a comedy bit like Paul Harris does for being a horseshoer.
Yeah.
You can take his premise and punch on, but you got your own story where you're like, because remember he shows up to that. He came up to Branson to do his audition, and he was really wrestling with, do I want to be a horseshoer or do I want to be a comedian? And that day I was sent to shoe a bunch of draft horses. I don't know if you know what a draft horse is, but it's twice the size of look, I'm even getting into Paul's voice. It's twice the size of a normal horse. Anyway, I was getting my tools ready, and I heard this big crash behind the barn, and I go back, and this old boy's laying on the ground bleeding from the head, and I go, what's going on? He goes, well, I had that horse tied to the tree waiting on you, and he just took off with it. And I want you to shoe him. And Paul goes, you're going to have to find somebody else because I'm a comedian.
I'm a comedian.
He goes, that was the day the Lord spoke to me
right.
out loud. You need to do the same thing. Listen, you're sitting on a gold mine of comedy, Clay. That is a great story where you can be like, so I was working with these hot dogs all day deciding, do I want to be a country music singer or do I want to work in a meat packing plant?
Hey, so I've never told that story ever before. Last year at Music Fest at my theater, the Haygoods were setting up behind the curtain, And the producer said, Clay, I need you to kill about 5 minutes because the Haygood's have to set up. So and it just hit me. I started talking about the concession stand and this and that. So we got some great hot dogs. And I'm like, speaking of hot, and I went into the story, and I mean, the audience was rolling. I could hear the Haygoods laughing behind the curtain. And after their set was over, Dominic Haygood came by. He goes, dude, you had us dying on that hot dog and bologna story. He said, you tell that in your show every night? I said, Dominic, that's the first time I've ever told that story in my life on stage. He goes, you need to keep that in. I don't even remember what I said, but it was, it was, it's
well,
pretty
because
funny.
the punchline is I haven't had a hot dog in 30 years. And with that said, let's take our intermission. Hot dogs are $5 back there.
Right, and I think that's kind of what I did after I told the whole gross story. I said, by the way, we have hot dogs back in the concession stand, and they all, got down.
Man.
Yeah, I need to work that in. Yeah, that's great.
I did last night some Eclipse comedy. I felt, I need to use this because I don't think it's going to be any good in a few years.
Right.
In a couple months. So